Mike, it has been a difficult 2 years for all football clubs due to the COVID situation. The New Saints lifted the JD Cymru Premier last Saturday. How good was it to quite literally get your hand on some silverware again?
It was extremely good. I mean, obviously, it's returned to its rightful place, and long may it stay in its rightful place in Park Hall. I think we've won it now 14 times, but obviously that particular trophy, we've won it end on end so many times, it should really be on a permanent fixture there by now, and it may be time for another new trophy, perhaps with bigger dragons or some other memorabilia on there. Never know, perhaps a picture of me and Andy Morrison would be quite nice. So set that aside. No, it's great to have our hands back on the trophy, and we look forward to all the challenges that brings within Europe.
And can we go back in time, Mike, to last April to be precise? The club parted ways with Scott Rusco and Steve Evans. You made that decision. How difficult a choice was it to make at the time?
It was an extremely difficult choice. I mean, on a personal level, both Scott and Evo are very good friends of mine, let alone the club. So it was one that took a lot of thinking through. Sometimes they say it's better not to be friends with management and etc., because you can make those decisions a lot easier. This was probably one of the most difficult decisions I've ever made in business or football career. And it was one which was not to say that they were failing, but I think the club needed that little bit of a shake-up to get things going again. And sadly, it required the removal of the two of them.
And Mike, the post was advertised and a lot of high profile managers applied. What made you go for Anthony Limbrick above those?
Well, it was evident that for us to progress as a club, it's not just about how the training goes on the pitch. And from continuing to work on what gives TNS the advantage over other clubs within our own league, and to be able to be successful with such a small budget in Europe, it became very apparent that the recruitment to the club was absolutely essential. If your manager is completely tied up with training and coaching, they sometimes you've got to find a way to be able to look and see what you can, one, acquire to the club, and two, what is affordable and what will give us the ability to go to the next step. So hence we wanted to reshape how things were done. I mean, Anthony is head coach and concentrates what happens with the players. He, on the pitch and how he sets them up. He also is responsible for guiding us what type of player he wants and who he wants to retain and who he wants to release. So that gave us the opportunity to bring in a director of football whose remit is to find and attract the very best players that are available to us for the positions that Anthony wants to improve. And hence why there's a slight change of structure. It gives the link between the board and the manager of what goes on the pitch, and it allows us to have someone full-time looking at all the leagues in Europe, all the leagues in England, Scotland and Ireland particularly, with a view that how do we find the best emerging talent at that sort of young age who we can mould into a TNS player.
And you mentioned the sporting director there, Gary Brabin, obviously filled that role. Ken McKenna as well, involved with the club now. Do you feel that the expansion of those particular roles at the New Saints is important, not just for this season, but also for the future seasons, and in particular, and we'll come to that later, Mike, the desire to get into the group stages of the Champions League?
Yeah, well, the group stages of European football is an absolute goal of the club. And I think when you try to bring something new into the process, it's important that sometimes you have to sometimes, as I said, remove what was there before, because adapting their belief systems is sometimes more difficult when having a clean piece of paper. And that was one of the reasons for looking at making the changes. But you say Ken, we brought obviously Brabs in to do the role he's doing. Ken is part of the scouting team. along with John, and their job is to analyse players broad, far, and near from those systems with a which they've had the brief from Brabs and Anthony to acquire or find those players. So it is a new working mechanism for the club. It has bedded in, and as you can see, that our recruitment last year of the players that we brought in have made a significant difference to the way that we've achieved this season. You mean Declan McManus scoring the number of goals he's done, and if you look at his goals in Europe, it proves that the gap of player that we had was on par with the teams that we played at those levels and perhaps beyond, because who would have given the fact with 10 minutes to go against Victoria Pilsen that we'd be 4-0 up? Score first away from home. And I think on the smallest of margins, we were edged out of it, and probably the better team lost that particular tie last season. But hey, that's football. We learn from it and we go forward. And going forward means that hopefully this season, with whatever improvements Anthony wants to bring in, Gary's got the list of players that will make an absolute difference to us.
You mentioned Declan McManus. Obviously, there was a fee involved there. It was declared publicly as well, so there's no secret about that. As far as Welsh football's concerned, that was a massive investment. How easy were you to persuade to part with that money, or did you have reservations about such an investment into one particular player?
No, we recognised for us to actually improve, we were going to need a significant striker, and just churning the old names around isn't really going to make the club any better. Obviously we looked long and hard. I mean, Jordan coming to the club again, an excellent talent. His pace, his tenacity has made a difference, and obviously with Declan's finishing power, that's given us a very good statement, and our firepower is high. So yes, it's important about who we recruit, but not just who we bring. When you look at the emerging talent as well from our league, we're never going to stop looking at our competitors within the league. And I think the attraction of full-time football, European football, and the track record of winning things our club has got, most clubs' players would take an eye at what TNS has to offer them. And this league does have some extremely good young talent who can be brought on and possibly with a career well beyond TNS. But ultimately we can show that players who do come to us do have a career outside TNS. Look at likes of Quiggs. He's been sensational again this year in the English game. So it is hopefully seen as a stepping stone. So best evolving talent within our league, we'll always have an eye on. So clubs, make sure you've got them on contract. The other thing is that with the time that we've got now, with the guys analysing clips from all around the games around the country and beyond, it is a lot easier to find that talent without relying on word of mouth and a succession of visits to watch someone. So again, I believe Gary, when we sit down later this week, will have a comprehensive list on the positions that Anthony's already indicated that he wants to strengthen.
And as well as Declan and Jordan that you've mentioned, we also signed Ash Baker, Danny Davis, recently Alex Denny, all three of them top quality additions to the squad. Ash Baker was playing for Sheffield Wednesday a number of times as well, prior to then going to Newport County onto TNS. Alex Denny played in the European Championships under-17 final with the likes of players that are now featuring in the English Premier League. Do you feel, Mike, that this step up in terms of quality signings is something that you want to build on for next season and then beyond?
Absolutely. If you look at the competition that we will be playing in Champions League or Europa League, they are of a considerable nature. We have to find players who have the potential ability to play at that level or beyond. Now, most players who have managed to secure themselves games at the level of pedigree that you mentioned there, is the targets that we're looking for. But as you know, football is a game of fine margins, and it's a very, very fine margin between being championship player and perhaps nowhere. It's those small margins. It's down to players' attitude, their fitness, their ability. It's not just play once, get a contract, and then they play forever. There is a real need to, as the individual, to perform, and we have to try and find those players who are going to be suitably motivated and have suitable potential to play at the level we expect them to play.
We've already made reference to lifting the title last Saturday. With 7 games to go, has that been a surprise to you, Mike, that we've been able to do it with still a number of games yet to play?
I won't say a surprise. I think that the talent that we've put together, it's no surprise that we've been able to get the results. What is very apparent, that there are more teams that have raised the bar within their game. I think that this season you could say that there are probably 7 teams, including ourselves, who are capable of winning the Welsh Premier League 20 years ago. That's the standard of team that now is your competitor, where as we've come through the journey from the Welsh Premier, previously the League of Wales, in the past, you'd be lucky if there was one challenger and someone else who could beat you on their day. The rest of the results were probably very regimented and very predictable. That is going. That is, there's nobody can guarantee to win a game within probably the top 8, possibly 9 teams. Look, we lost to Aberystwyth this season, and they were rightful winners of that game. So, and if you look where Aber are, 10th or 11th place, or they are a team to be reckoned with on their day. So it's no longer about turning up. You do have to prepare for all games, and that you have to realise that probably what we benefited from is many of those teams have managed to take points off each other, and that has probably been the reason why we've been able to take such a runaway breakaway lead. The other factor, which I find rather strange, is that Connah's Quay didn't strengthen last summer. It was an ideal opportunity for them. They had 3 bites of a cherry, providing they could have won in round 1, but not strengthening to take advantage of that seemed a little bit illogical, even though they were up for sale at the time. You'd have thought that they would have had a better chance to sell being successful in Europe, and it would have meant that if it wasn't sold, they wouldn't have had such a bad start. So that also probably played a part in the league, and was probably why Andy decided to throw his cap in, because at the end of the day he probably saw the writing on the wall. And it is a shame to see that they didn't strengthen, and you can see, and obviously where their position came so lowly in the first 7 or 8 games. So hey ho, but onwards and upwards. They weren't our challengers this season. There was, you've got to say that Penabont has played extremely well. I've been very impressed with the way that they've put their team together. I think Rees is a very good evolving manager. I think he's going to continue to do well there. You can see the likes of Bala there or thereabouts again, and ultimately the squad that they have all have brought themselves back into that challenging for second place, where perhaps a month or so ago they were mid-table. That amount of talent doesn't stay down for long, and then obviously Newtown has put together some impressive performances this season. So there is a good amount of teams. Those teams will continue to cause challenges, and I'm sure they're going to continue to improve as well. And with the one less European place, which is a shame financially for the league, hopefully those improvements will drag the results from the ones that do get through to where we start to get that extra place back, which again is, I think, important for the league.
And looking back to last summer, it was a fantastic European campaign for the New Saints, the best ever. 4 victories, 1 draw, just that 1 defeat, pushing Pilsen all the way to penalties on the road in the final game. Do you feel that the choices that you've made to replace the management team, to bring other staff in, to recruit the players that you've done, do you feel that that vindicates everything that you've done so far at the club?
Not for me really to judge, but let's say to you that the results we got last summer were very encouraging. The performances we put into the league this season, very encouraging. If the league table doesn't lie. Am I saying there's not more work to be done? No, there is a lot more work to be done so that we can bridge that gap between us and the teams that evolve in Europe. If you look at the best teams who we're expected to beat, their budgets are twice the size of us. So the general sporting public doesn't realise how good a performance we get in Europe based on the size of our budget compared to the clubs we play. And on analysing other clubs that play in the Champions League, there is only San Marino that have a lower budget than the New Saints Football Club. So that's how impressive the game was against Victoria Pilsen.
Do you have plans, Mike, to increase the budget, looking ahead now, of course, to next season's European competitions?
We're looking to increase the quality of players that come in. Indirectly, that may mean that we do more transfer fees, which obviously means you're investing in your player, which really, if we're going down that road, you've got to be looking at a younger player with a view that you may well be able to sell that player on with the improvements they'll get under the management of Anthony and Sarge. And that in the meantime, while they're within the club, you are getting the results in Europe that you want to succeed there, which may mean that you progress to the group stages, which then that unlocks another level of budget, and probably those players don't want to be sold. They want to play in the Europe's best competitions. So there's horses for courses. We have to attract the talent we want. So money does go some of the way to achieving that, but you can't just use money. If you do that, you end up getting very stagnated. You could quite easily become one of these clubs who've spent a lot of money and still just dwindling in the league, and that happens in the Premier League a lot, as you can see. And there's no way out of a contract. You have to honour it. So ultimately, you've got to be skillful how you sign the contracts. You have to ensure that the talent that you want to attract, you get. And if you don't, you get rid of them. And you have to get rid of them very quickly, because other players won't accept bringing in a player which is no better than what they are or worse than they are, because if you have used money to do that, you have very unhappy players. So it's a very careful balance. But as a team of management, I've got great faith in them. And as I said, you can't always get it right. But let's touch wood and hope that the management of TNS, like they've done for over 20 years, continue to use their resources wisely and deliver the goods. Because you must remember, every single manager since I've chaired the club has been the winner of the Welsh Premier League.
And the New Saints, as we've said, has now qualified for Champions League football next season. How important will that be in the context of attracting players? It's okay to say we're going to pay them X amount of money, but the lure of European football, how important is that?
Absolute. Without that, you don't have all the pieces to go to attract the right players. Just as I said, just using money alone is not the way forward. They've got to be a player who embraces what we call the TNS philosophy. They want to be footballers first and foremostly, rather than going, I've got a job and I've got this and I've got my football money. They aren't really footballers. Those are people who are using football to earn money. Most professional footballers in League 2 don't earn as much as players in our league if you add their wages and their football money together. So, players who do that, who are playing non-contract, aren't in the game for being footballers. They're in the and I have no disrespect for them. They're in the business to find money for their family. We want players who want to be footballers, and they want to have a career as being a footballer, and that's very, very important. So they'd go, no, I don't want to go and work for somebody and then play football in the evening or at the weekend. I want to be a footballer. I want to play at the highest level I can. I can go and do other work when I retire.
The JD Cymru Premier, as we know, has 12 teams. There's constantly talk on social media from fans and those who are followers of the game in Wales that it should be expanded. One or two others say that it should become less teams. Where do you stand on all that, Mike?
Well, the important thing is the quality of the game. I mean, I take the purest view is always going to be expand the league to something that gives you a total games of 30 plus and only have to play each other twice. But when you're a realist about how do you fund those clubs to have a standard of football that the fans are going to continue to engage with. The difficulty is there isn't enough money in the game today for all teams to go full time. I think if shrinking the league would be a possibility, but it can only be a possibility if it's coordinated with a financial impact from the FAW, sponsorship, TV, that allows every team to be full-time. So if that was presented in front of me as the chairman, it might make our job more difficult, but that would mean I would support a shrinking of the league if it was coupled with finance. Just doing it for the sake of it, absolutely no chance. Where it is today does have benefits that the pool of players to select from isn't so is not big anyway, but at least it doesn't just mean that the teams are weakened by the spreading of those players further. I think the split, albeit I probably would prefer to play 4 times everybody, but that's not everybody's cup of tea to have that many games, and perhaps it is too many games. But the split does give something for everybody to play for. And as you can see, in the bottom half, there's hardly any points between 11th and 7th, and if you look at the top half, there's 3 or 4 points between 6th and 2nd. So there's competition there for somebody to play for all season. So you've either got to, and that where I've seen in the past is where when the league is expanded, teams actually can go, we've got enough points now. We don't have to worry. We won't get relegated this year. We don't have enough points to make a challenge, so we can cut the pay. In fact, I've seen that happen in the past many times when a team gets to a certain level of points, they cut the budget, those players run away, and for the rest of the season, they're not champions. And that also is unfair competition, because if you take a team that is playing, say they're in 2nd, they play one of those teams, they've thrown in the towel, or vice versa. It doesn't give consistency to a league, and it undermines its credibility. But while there's something to play for, and since the league has split, I haven't really seen this withdrawing of budget, which I used to see quite regularly prior to that format of the game.
And finally, Mike, during the course of the current season, you were challenged by your counterpart at Connors Quay Nomads, Gary Dewhurst, to a bet which you accepted. And it was from that point onwards, whichever team gained the most points from then till the end of the season, that the loser would have to make a £5,000 donation to a charity. Assuming that you win that, Mike, have you got a charity in mind that will be the recipient of that sum?
I've sent a few charities over to our guys to vet them and see what they think. So that's work in progress. I mean, at the moment, there's still a lot of games left there to play, and if you look at from that particular point, I think Connors Quay have got quite a number of points on the board. I think we're ahead. I think that the games that are left, you would say that Connors Quay should win most of those games with the team that they've got. So that could quite easily be us writing the cheque to Gary. Who knows? But I will say that the 18 points that they had deducted, I won't take them into account. It's a straightforward. It's a straightforward who's won it on the pitch. Sporting merit is always the main thing to me, even though they may have had an ineligible player for some of those points. But hey, we won't take that into account. Charities to benefit from what out of this, not rules and etc. etc. So.
Mike Harris, the new Saints FC chairman, thank you for your time today, and thank you for the insights into what goes on behind the scenes at Park Hall.
Thank you very much.